Hello, I'm Tim White. Welcome to Sightings. The abduction phenomenon has become a disturbing part of many UFO sightings. At first, only a few people claim to have been forcibly taken away by extraterrestrials. But now, so many people have come forward with similar stories that alien abduction can no longer be written off as the fantasies of a very few.
I looked up in my rearview mirror and lights were coming down out of the sky.
I walked out to the edge of the water and I noticed this huge, shining thing.
I was so terrified looking into these big black eyes and these little creatures. I was thinking I could just raise my fist and crush his head. And exactly at that moment, I became paralyzed.
It's the kind of fear that I've only experienced one other time, and that's when I was robbed and I had a gun at my head, and that's the kind of fear it is.
I thought that I was dying. I'm dying now. This is what it's like when you die.
The visions often come during sleep. Nightmares about being abducted, probed, and prodded by aliens who have sinister motives. Hundreds of people have come forward to talk about their disturbing experiences and admit that they think their nightmares are real. Experts believe that there are thousands, perhaps even millions more just like them, who are too afraid to talk. In Secret Life, author David Jacobs chronicles the abduction phenomenon.
We have hundreds and thousands of people who are coming forward and saying that the abduction phenomenon has happened to them, that they've experienced it, and basically they say the same thing as everybody else has said, and until recently, there was no possibility that they could have picked up these stories in the media.
Since she was a baby, commercial photographer Kim Carlsberg has been plagued by memories of abduction.
At 4:30 in the morning, I saw this image of these four beings just move through this wall. They just, like it wasn't there. And they came over to me, two at my feet, two at my head, and they started to lift me up to the ceiling.
Most abductions take place where a person is taken out of the normal environment, they're taken against their will, they have physical, mental, reproductive procedures performed on them, and then they're released.
Bud Hopkins has been researching alien abduction reports for 26 years and is a firm believer.
I'm the first to admit that all this sounds outrageous. It all sounds just crazy, and yet the evidence is there behind it.
But skeptic Philip Klass believes mass media is to blame for the rise in abduction reports.
Dozens of talk shows, dozens of other TV shows have promoted this idea that aliens are here and abducting human beings. And so it becomes the popular myth.
Particular problems could adequately be explained by the condition narcolepsy. This is a disorder characterized by hypnagogic hallucinations, that's hallucinations that occur at sleep onset, which can be very vivid and include the feeling of other people being present in the room or a sensation of levitation. Patients will actually describe saying that they are looking down onto their body.
I have two people that I've never met describing this exact same examination of their head being opened up, something being done to their brain, and being put back together again.
They opened my back. I knew my back was open because I could feel. It was almost as though a slit had been drawn down my back and across to the side, and they had opened a flap of flesh and tissue.
Whether the reports come from adults or children, men or women, most of them follow similar patterns.
There's a bright light that shines in the room. The abductee sees it. They hear a noise outside.
They're not interested in your mate, they're interested in you. So what they do is they render the person that you're with unconscious.
She goes up a beam of light with the alien into a hovering craft. If anyone goes into the room at that point, there's no one in the room. She's not in bed. In other words, the person is literally missing.
You find yourself on a table and these creatures around you with instruments, and you have no idea what they're doing, and they don't tell you.
My skin was sliced like with a surgical instrument.
When a person is abducted, it's a physical examination. The focus of the entire enterprise seems to me to be unmistakably on reproductive issues.
They have a mission, a job to do, and they're doing their job with little respect to their subjects.
90% of reported abductions involve descriptions of what experts call gray aliens, extraterrestrial creatures with oversized heads and dark almond-shaped protruding eyes. Less common are insect-like or reptilian creatures.
The reptilian type
has bothered a lot of people. It seems to be quite hostile and intrusive, often has claw-like hands, and I know there's one case where claw marks were photographed on the back of a woman.
There's one being in particular that I always recognize, and he's not a gray. He's taller, he's thinner, he's got a bigger head, he's got bigger eyes. His limbs are very praying mantis-like. I remember being on the table with my head turned away, not wanting to look at this creature. And then when I looked at him, I just recognized him as the one that I hated.
In a few cases, subjects claim to see hybrids, creatures who are half human, half alien. Some abductees believe they are being crossbred with aliens to create these hybrids.
A very important part of the abduction phenomenon is that there are reproductive procedures carried out upon them.
I've been shown children. I've been shown babies. I've been asked to hold children and babies. I've been asked to give these children affection. And these children aren't alien children, and they're not human children. They're somewhere in between.
I had a woman who had been to the doctor, had an ultrasound done. Her husband was there. Everyone observed at 3 months a healthy fetus. The next day she wakes up screaming they took it. Is so upset her husband takes her back to the doctor. He does a pregnancy test, finds out she's no longer pregnant. They do a D&C, there's nothing there.
The most humiliating thing that happened to me is they put a cylindrical sort of thing over my genitals, and it made me have an orgasm in a second. And I really feel like I'm one of those few men who knows what a woman feels like when she's raped.
I've been on a table, and I've seen something removed from my body that I will call a fetus, a baby. It was so small I couldn't believe that it could live on its own. I remember putting my finger in the arch of its foot. I was afraid to look at the face. I was afraid to see what it looked like.
There seems to be an enormous interest in the emotional side of this, too, on the part of the aliens. They want us to hold these odd little children, these babies. They want to see how a mother will hold in love a child, things which to us are instinctive.
The abduction phenomenon begins usually in infancy, or at least by the age of 2, 3, or 4. It continues all through childhood, all through maturity, and into old age as well.
I have many cases where the person is taken as a child, usually what we refer to as the bedroom visitation.
I was laying in bed, I opened my eyes, and here's a little gray standing there looking at me. And all I could really remember were those dark eyes.
It is as if that person has become a kind of tagged animal in someone else's experiment. And that little person, as he or she grows to adulthood, will be abducted over a period of time at irregular intervals.
Let us assume that this is all being made up, that this is internally generated, that there is no abduction phenomenon. If that's the case, then we have discovered something of enormous importance.
What are the repercussions of thousands of people running around thinking they're crazy, feeling crazy, being crazy, because they have no way to understand what's happening?
Psychiatrists and psychologists who are dealing with these people are the first to say, something happened to this person. This is not a fantasy. This is not something the person cooked up. This was an event in that person's life which was truly upsetting.
These experiences are not pleasant experiences. This is not something I'm happy happened to me. There's a part of me that would love to find the answer that it was something else.
It's a very lonely place to be, to have this experience and not be able to remember the details and not know if it's real. And it's very, very hard to walk through life with this kind of a secret.
Even some of the most skeptical members of the psychiatric profession agree that the abduction phenomenon is not a hoax, but the causes for these stories are to be found not in alien spacecraft, but right here on Earth. When we return, Sightings finds evidence that at least some UFO encounters may be the result of top-secret experiments the government doesn't want you to know about.
Coming up, what's hidden in Area 51? Many claim it's the U.S. military's own top-secret UFOs.
We have things out there that are literally out of this world.
The U.S. government has had a standing policy. It would neither confirm nor deny the existence of UFOs. Their non-cooperation has been interpreted by many ufologists as evidence of a government conspiracy to cover up UFO sightings. Now, Sightings has uncovered information that provides another explanation for their silence. Many UFO sightings may actually be top-secret military aircraft the government doesn't want you to know about.
When I first saw the UFO, it was directly overhead, moving incredibly slowly. The shape of it was half a triangle.
And all of a sudden, over at the hill, this enormous pattern of lights emerges.
I was just in awe of what I'd seen because I didn't know what it was and I'd never seen anything like it.
Holy cow!
There's no question that there have been sightings by military devices in space. And that gets us right to the UFO question. Are we dealing with a cosmic Watergate? Which I maintain that we are.
What the hell was that? I don't know. It was neat. It was like leaving stuff behind it, wasn't it?
For the past 25 years, the United States government, especially the Air Force, has been telling us these things don't exist.
I feel that there's been so much controversy about cover-ups and UFO phenomena and everything that goes on. And I think that someone needs to point out that a lot of it is just hogwash.
And anybody who says the United States government is not withholding information about flying saucers simply isn't telling the truth, or they're totally ignorant one way or the other.
Our most recent investigation has concentrated on a series of sightings in the western United States. Sightings has learned that many UFOs spotted in California and Nevada may actually be highly classified military experiments called black projects. Sources familiar with these black projects, many of whom wish to remain anonymous, have told us that the military is now experimenting with aerospace technology beyond our wildest dreams.
The objects we're talking about are zipping around and doing hard angled turns, acute angled turns. In order to do that, it must be controlling gravity. And therefore, what you're talking about is a spacecraft, not an aircraft.
I think you have to be careful not to confuse what's mysterious with what is virtually supernatural. Certainly some of these things are going to look very strange. They're very unlike aircraft with which people are familiar.
Well, certainly the history of the flying saucer phenomena suggests that in the past, classified programs resulted in a lot of reports of flying saucers. And if you see all of the instances where conventional aircraft have been misinterpreted as flying saucers, it's quite easy to understand how unconventional aircraft could receive a similar misinterpretation.
In the Nevada desert, we have things that would make George Lucas envious. We have things out there that are literally out of this world.
Most aeronautical black projects reportedly operate out of this test site located at Groom Lake in Nevada. This installation is also known as Area 51, or Dreamland. The government denies the very existence of Area 51, but these photographs do prove there is an installation at Groom Lake.
They have a hangar near the south end of the ramp that appears to have doors that are almost 200 feet tall, 400 feet wide. You can put anything in there. One of the problems associated with Groom Lake is the fact that it is a place that does not officially exist.
This federal official insisted on hiding his identity.
Area 51 is the most tightly secured installation in this country. It's guarded both over the air and on the ground by elite Air Force security police and Department of Energy special response teams. They're heavily armed, and their total mission is to keep people off of this installation.
An ideal place for top secret, highly classified military projects, to refine them, to take them to the next level. This is the place. You have deep, deep desert valleys, high mountain ranges to camouflage and mask these things when they fly. The military is the top dog here in Nevada, no doubt about it. They run the show.
If someone came to me and said there's just absolutely nothing that's secret, and they decided they were going to hike into Area 51, I think that could be the biggest and perhaps the last mistake they are going to make in their life.
Are these people still locked into a Cold War mentality? Is that the point here? Or are they really hiding something that's totally alien? Is this otherworldly technology that's being applied to Air Force black projects?
One of the most recent black projects to be leaked to the media has been dubbed Aurora. The few facts revealed so far about Aurora's speed and maneuverability are tantalizing. Rumors about Aurora first started after thousands of people in Southern California reported feeling earthquakes. Seismologists found that the tremors were not earthquakes, but were caused by sonic booms. The booms were the first hard evidence that high-speed, unidentified aircraft were operating over the western United States.
We really can't tell what's moving. The only thing we see is a sonic boom, and that's telling us that something is moving faster than the speed of sound. So actually, we can't even tell it's an airplane.
The sonic booms were tracked and found to be heading toward Nevada. At the same time, witnesses described an increasing number of UFOs that defied the laws of aerodynamics. If they are top-secret military aircraft, where is this new technology coming from?
The technology is incredible. A Mach 6 airplane, unmanned aerial vehicle performing these incredibly banked high-speed turns. It boggles the mind. Yeah, I think it could possibly be something otherworldly or at least borrowed alien technology. I don't put that beyond the realm.
Top-secret testing of experimental aircraft does provide a compelling explanation for many UFO sightings. But what about sightings which occur in remote areas far from military bases, or sightings in which eyewitnesses claim personal contact? Further investigation is needed to provide a more complete answer to the UFO question.
Coming actual subjects. The theories expressed are not the only possible interpretation. The viewer is invited to make a judgment based on all available information. Tonight, on Sightings, many thought the mystery of the English crop circles was a hoax, but our ongoing investigation has uncovered startling evidence that may prove extraterrestrial contact.
This intelligence is almost certainly not human.
Then, what?
Welcome to Sightings. I'm Tim White. Since the early 1980s, over 2,000 crop circle formations have been discovered in 30 countries, and new ones are being reported every month. Theories about where they come from range from weather anomalies to extraterrestrials to crazed hedgehogs doing a mating dance. Well, obviously some theories are more credible than others, but the fact remains that something is happening in fields around the world that no one can fully explain. The stories of unexplained designs appearing mostly in the farm fields of England hit an all-time high in 1990. News media from around the world were quick to hail these enigmatic circles and lines as the strangest scientific discovery of the 20th century. For a brief period, crop circles became the darling of popular culture. But then, two hoaxers stepped forward to claim that they had created the crop circles. And just as quickly as the phenomenon began, the media dropped the crop circle story. The hoax theory stuck, and soon the only people still interested were hardcore theorists and scientists.
Initially, these were simple single circles, but in 1990, the patterns became much more complex, dramatically so, and blew right out of the water some of the early theories.
The early formations were the size of a domestic room. Now you have formation which are the almost central. So we have enormous growth, both in complexity and in size and in numbers.
Michael Green is an archaeologist and architecture historian who is also one of the founding members of the Center for Crop Circle Studies.
We're not a religious cult. We're not a strange, wacky branch of the UFO movement. We are trying to use rational means to establish what's going on. And the first thing we learnt this year, in particular, is that there are a few hoaxes.
I'm Dave Chorley, this is Doug Barr, and we are the two people that have created the crop circles in 1978 through to today.
The most impressive thing to me, and the reason why I actually stopped and listened to what they had to say, was not really what they told me, but what they did in the field. Because when they did the demonstration out in Sussex at Chilgrove, the formation itself was quite messy, but it was amazing how quickly it happened. In 45 minutes, this huge formation was laid down, and that's even accounting for the fact that half the world's press were tramping around it as well with them, asking them for interviews at the same time. But Doug and Dave had only done a few of the hundreds of circles that had been done, and from the evidence, their public demonstrations in broad daylight, they weren't very good at it. But no one really knew what hoaxers could do and what they couldn't do. And so I thought, well, here's an ideal opportunity for a scientific experiment, and the best way to do it is through a competition.
Biologist and author Rupert Sheldrake did organize a competition held earlier this year. The challenge was to see if anyone could create crop circles that could not be identified as hoaxes. The circles were made at night, and the next day, the contest winners demonstrated their techniques.
What we found was that the standard of artificial circle making was much higher than most people had expected. These people could do very well. The standard was very high indeed, and the most surprising thing was that people could do all this in complete darkness with making very little noise. I flew the site the next day, and the aerial pictures that we took show some of the centers of these formations displaying exactly the characteristics that the genuine circles have displayed, and exactly the characteristics that many of the experts have said couldn't be done by people. Things like making rings without having a hole in the center where somebody stands. Things like producing a radial effect where the crop splays out from a central point. And the team that won and the team that came second and third produced really marvelous formations which the judges were very impressed by. So what they show is that many of the features of crop circles could be hoaxes, but they don't show that they are hoaxes. And I mean, the analogy that I find most helpful is the fact you can forge a $20 bill doesn't prove that all $20 bills are forgeries.
The first and primary feature, which is evident in the genuine phenomenon and not in the hoaxes, is the spiraling fingerprint.
Colin Andrews heads up the Circles Phenomenon Research Group in Brantford, Connecticut. He has co-authored 2 books on crop circles and is believed to have visited more actual crop circle sites than any other researcher.
This particular screen shows clearly the difference between the fingerprint, this is the print at the top here, of the genuine phenomenon, the real phenomenon, and all of those hoaxes which we're hearing so much about these days.
Andrews believes that the most important patterns to be studied are those where the flow of the crops changes direction within a single circle, a pattern no human has yet been able to duplicate in public.
I think the single most convincing argument for a real phenomenon and against the hoax are the effects that the phenomenon are having upon the plants themselves. Dr. Levingood, a well-known physicist in the United States, has discovered changes in the structure of the plants themselves, in the cell structure of the plants, the molecular structure of the plants on a number of continents.
When a formation hits, it just knocks the heck out of the embryo. They don't grow. The seeds don't develop.
Dr. Levingood has discovered that the cell structure of the crops within a formation are distinctly different from undisturbed crops nearby, and that this new cell structure seriously alters the crop's growth.
Let me get this straight. A plant that is in a formation undergoes an internal change so that seeds taken from that plant grow a different kind of plant or an altered plant?
Altered in both the growth rate and the germination. In some cases, it increases quite significantly.
Some people maintain that hoaxers created not only some, but all of these formations. You buy that?
Oh, God, no. No, this is utterly ridiculous. No. If they had that kind of energy, they wouldn't be wasting it out in the field making impressions in a crop. It'd be a new kind of energy distribution, let's say, that I have never heard of.
Mathematician Gerald Hawkins is another scientist with an intriguing theory. Professor Hawkins made his mark in the 1950s when he came up with an explanation for Stonehenge, still accepted today. Now, Hawkins has devised a mathematical formula relating the crop circles to the notes of a musical scale.
Help us understand that. You're not suggesting that because there's a relationship between the ratios of the crop circles and the ratios of musical tones that you can somehow play the crop circles.
I'm not saying that the crop circles are musical. I'm saying that they follow the same mathematical law as the major diatonic scale. No natural physical process that we know will generate the diatonic scale, which is, of course, the white notes on the piano. Therefore, the only theory that we can put forward is that it's done by human beings. It's all a hoax. But they're clever hoaxes, And if it's not a hoax, then we have a major scientific problem on our hands.
Professor Hawkins has studied the ratios of the sizes of crop circles and found the same ratios between notes in the diatonic scale. If the music doesn't seem listenable, then it seems to imply there's something beyond music being communicated here.
Yes, it could be a copyright insignia of the primary hoaxers or the crop circle makers, and perhaps they may use this later for further information transmission. But I'm not going to predict what crop circle makers will do next.
Dr. Hawkins, you're implying that if even one of the crop circles is not the work of a hoaxer, that science will have to rethink everything?
I'm afraid so. You only need one in this case, and you have a mystery.
What, of course, stands out clearly now is that we have the uncomfortable fact that this intelligence is almost certainly not human. And this is where people become extremely nervous. The media becomes very nervous. The press becomes extremely nervous. They don't like mysteries like this. One of the reasons that some thinkers have thought might be behind this is the position of the Earth in terms of the terrible damage that is being done by man. Could we be dealing with something which is trying to warn us?
Either it's very skillful hoaxers with a tremendous sense of humor, or it's some non-human intelligence that's completely off the scale of anything that we've contemplated so far. But if they are communications of Gaia or nature or aliens or whatever, if they're communications of some kind from a non-human source, it's not quite clear what they're saying. Their main message so far seems to be, watch this space.
Are we any closer today to unraveling the mystery of what or who created the crop circles? Joining me now is George Wingfield, Director of Field Research and founding member of the Center for Crop Circle Studies in London, England. George, welcome to Sightings.
Hello, Tim.
The crop circles have changed over the years. The shapes have changed, the number have changed. Have you learned anything from those directions?
There's no doubt at all that these are of some sort of intelligent origin, and this appears to be non-human.
What do the circles seem to be leading toward?
I think they are leading us towards an understanding of some other level of intelligence which is not human.
Do you believe, George, that the crop circles are an ancient phenomenon, that they've always been there, they just haven't been accounted for by modern means?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think the crop circles started appearing in quite recent times, probably less than 30 years ago. There may have been a few before that, but very, very few.
For you, do the crop circles inspire hope or fear or merely curiosity?
Well, they certainly inspire hope. I believe whatever is causing the circles is something which is benign. I don't believe there's anything hostile or evil here, which is what some people would have you to believe.
George Wingfield, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim.
And we'll be back with more Sightings in just a moment. Welcome to Sightings. I'm Tim White. The defeat of communism in the former Soviet Union has had wide-ranging consequences. For our Sightings investigative team, it has meant unprecedented access to secret documents and exclusive interviews about one of the most controversial UFO sightings in history. In the first of a series of reports from inside Russia, our search for the truth about a mysterious place known as the M Triangle. The Republic of Russia is the heart of the new Commonwealth of Independent States that was once the Soviet Union. On a daily basis, new information is released to the people of this country about the previous government's clandestine activities. One of the most unlikely activities was a well-organized government effort to research UFO phenomena. And today, that activity is spoken about openly at the Russian Space Center, especially by those who have been close to the Russian space program, like former Colonel Marina Popovich.
We are presently standing at the Cosmonaut Training Center of Russia.
It is where all the cosmonauts are still trained, even today. Some of the training includes the proper protocol in cosmonauts dealing with UFOs. As a colonel, I used to be a terrible skeptic, but when I see the government programs dealing with UFOs, I can't ignore this evidence. I've seen photos pilots have taken of saucers attacking planes. We're also now aware of recurring landing sites. I have absolutely no doubt that UFOs exist. It is impossible that in a universe this large, that's expanding so quickly, with new stars and planets being formed, that we are a unique planet that sustains life.
A team of sightings researchers set out to uncover new information about the Soviet government's UFO research efforts. Information that had been long suppressed was coming to light. Even as our investigation began, a guard involved in a routine examination of our credentials was eager to tell us about his own UFO experiences.
1.5 years ago, I was standing guard here at Lenin's tomb in Red Square when I got a message over the radio. There was a UFO flying over Spassky Tower. Come quickly. When I arrived, I looked, but it had gone away. But there was definitely an object hovering above the tower for several minutes, one militiaman said. In the old days, we would be frightened to talk of such things. But today there is an openness. In fact, there is even a TV show on now about such things.
Once a week, Russians tune their televisions to UFO, Unannounced Visit, one of the most popular programs in the country. It deals with UFO mysteries, and its host is Alexander Myachekov, a respected journalist and ufologist. It was from Alexander that we received our first information about the one UFO story that has captured the imagination of all Russia for the past 3 years.
We have a very interesting and mysterious area around the city of Perm. The incidents that happened in that area are hard to believe, so unbelievable that it is hard to compare that area to any other area of anomaly. That area is called M Triangle. The journalist Pavel Muhartov has been there, and I'll tell you, he had unbelievable experiences there and developed new, almost superhuman abilities after visiting the triangle. It's absolutely fantastic.
We visited with Pavel Muhartov, the journalist who first broke this story of the M Triangle. He's a man with no formal scientific training, but he believes he encountered mysterious forces in the M Triangle zone that gave him new abilities and knowledge, the knowledge that would eventually lead him to the Russian space program.
I grew up a slight man. My health was never good. I was even kicked out of the Russian military because I was too frail.
This one here is proof that he was discharged from the army for health reasons.
After I was discharged from the military, I worked for a newspaper as a reporter. I started reading letters about the M Triangle zone.
He found documents in the archives that one of the KGB agents started to write reports to his superiors that strange phenomena started to appear.
There were many UFO sightings, sudden insanity, and dangerous levels of radiation. My editor sent me there to cover the story. Wild feelings came over me, strange photos were taken, and many in the group fell ill.
These are the photos taken at night. That's what they saw during the night, flying and hovering above them.
For me, the M Triangle story is good. I developed great knowledge about aerospace and about physics, and my health improved. I quit the newspaper and was immediately accepted into the Soviet space program. The M Triangle changed my life. I am no longer slight. Now, I am a cosmonaut.
The M Triangle is an area considered to be a hotbed of UFO activity. It is located in a remote area 600 miles east of Moscow in the Ural Mountains. Eyewitnesses have reported strange craft, mysterious light phenomena, and encounters of the third kind with translucent beings. There are even journals and books devoted to the ongoing sightings in the M Triangle.
When Muhartov first wrote about it, I was skeptical. It was too obvious that everyone who lived in the area saw all this extraterrestrial activity. Many suggest that the area is high in mercury deposits, and this is causing hallucinations. But could it be to the extent that people are seeing signs and letters in the sky? There must be something there.
Before our own sightings investigation at the M Triangle, we stopped at the Commonwealth Ufological Center, a government agency on the outskirts of Moscow dedicated to UFO research.
Each day we process 15 to 20 UFO reports at our offices, including those from the M Triangle. We know of the dangers of this zone and that science has not been able to establish the truth about UFOs in the zone. But that doesn't rule out the health hazards. My advice to you is to get in and get out of that dangerous zone. It's just not safe.
Working in Russia was made more difficult by the lack of provisions we found available. This is a typical grocery store in Russia during business hours, a grim reminder of the upheaval still going on in the new republics. There may be a free market now, but red cabbage is still too expensive for most shoppers. The harsh conditions bear silent witness to the character of the Russian people who endure this hardship on a daily basis. After a 2.5-hour jet flight into the Ural Mountains, the research team flew an additional 90 minutes by helicopter. We agreed to comply with the government's request that we remain in the M Triangle for 24 hours only. The government warned us of dangers there. People who had reportedly gone mad, lost their eyesight, or disappeared completely. We first landed in a small village just outside the M Triangle to see if we could find eyewitnesses to the bizarre phenomena in the region. What we found was a village out of the 1890s with people who told stories right out of Star Wars.
I was walking my grandmother home when we both saw a red flash coming from that zone. Lots of my friends have seen that too.
Mysterious things that fly in the sky here are common. I don't even listen anymore to such old news.
I've seen these saucers numerous times. To say that they are nonsense is nonsense. We know what we see.
We found no one who had been adversely affected by the reported paranormal activity. We then proceeded on the final leg of our journey into the M Triangle, accompanied by Emil Bakurin, ufologist and author of the Russian bestseller, UFOs, Explanation of the Unexplained.
I've written a book about the zone because there have been so many strange experiences here by believers and skeptics alike. Near our tent, one group saw translucent fireballs that chased them into the woods and burned them seriously. Only 17 meters from here, a glowing object stunned a research group. One of the men later committed suicide. We often see groups of UFOs fly past this field. Sometimes they disappear, sometimes they land and leave radiation.
The UFOs sighted here have yet to be fully explained. The strange light phenomena, however, are thought to be the result of geomagnetic anomalies evident in the area, known to scientists as lightning balls.
We've used very sensitive equipment that measures and reacts to electricity in a battery from as far as 100 meters. But the same piece of measuring equipment wouldn't react to those energetic balls that we've observed. Therefore, we conclude that the energy is not of an electromagnetic nature.
The light phenomena are best seen at night. Our investigative team brought special night vision cameras, and after several hours, they photographed what can only be described as startling.
George, did we see a satellite? What do you think that was?
No, a satellite cannot do this like this.
What was it?
I don't know. It cannot do the trajectories like this in the sky, like this, and like this.
The strange streak of light never reappeared. A frame-by-frame analysis offers more detail, but gives little insight into its origin. It may have been a shooting star or a satellite. However, there is little debate among the Russian UFO community that something beyond rational explanation is occurring in this remote region. And there is no better proof than Pavel Mohartov, the man who claims he gained secret knowledge that transformed him from journalist to cosmonaut number 152 after visiting the M Triangle. Most of the people we talked with in Russia believe UFOs are operating in the M Triangle. However, off the record, a few scientists offered another possibility. They claim that the Soviet government has been secretly testing a new breed of weapons called psychotronic weapons that immobilize an enemy by creating realistic mass hallucinations. They suggest that eyewitnesses in the M Triangle may have actually seen something that wasn't really there, because they were unwitting participants in a top-secret military experiment.